Okay, hi, welcome back to this video series on Windows Server 2012. Deciding on the type of installation. One of the final choices you must make before installing Windows Server 2012 or 2 is what type of installation you want. There are three ways to install Windows Server 2012 or 2. Windows Server 2012 or 2 Graphical User Interface GUI. This is the version with which most administrators are familiar. This is the version that uses Microsoft Management Console, MMC Windows, and it is the version that allows the use of a mouse to navigate through the installation. Windows Server 2012 R2 Core Server. This is a bare bones installation of Windows Server 2012 R2. You can think of it this way: if Windows Server 2012 R2 is the top of the line luxury card, and Windows Server 2012 R2 Core is a stripped down model with no air conditioning, manual windows and cloth seats. It might not be pretty to look at, but it gets the job done. Windows Server R2 MinShell. This is the best of both installation types mentioned previously. Minimum shell MinShell gives you the advantage of using the GUI management tools, but MinShell does not actually install the GUI. It gives administrators the ability to use tools with which they are familiar, but still provides a small attack surface and the advantages of server core. In Windows Server 2012 or 2, an administrator has the ability to remove the GUI shell after a GUI shell install has been completed. This removes Internet Explorer 10, Windows Explorer, the desktop and the start screen, Microsoft Management Console, MMC, Server Manager, and a subset of Control Panel are still present, giving you a MinShell installation plus PowerShell. Server Core does not have the normal Windows interface or GUI. Almost everything has to be configured via the command line, or in some cases using the remote server administration tools from a full version of Windows Server 2012 or 2. While this might scare off some administrators, it has the following benefits: reduced management. Because Server Core has a minimum number of applications installed, it reduces management effort. Minimal maintenance. Only basic systems can be installed on Server Core, so it reduces the upkeep you would need to perform in a normal server installation. Small footprint. Server Core required only 1 gig of disk space to install and 2 gig of free space for operations. Tight security. With only a few applications running on server, it is less vulnerable to attacks. The prerequisites for Server Core are basic. It requires the Windows Server 2012 or 2 installation media, a product key, and a hardware on which to install it. After you install the base operating system, you use PowerShell or the remote administration tools to configure the network settings, add the machine to the domain, create and format disks, and install roles and features. It takes only a few minutes to install Server Core depending on the hardware. One of the few things to keep in mind is that you can upgrade or downgrade to Server Core or MinShell in Windows Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008. If you wanted to switch your Windows Server GUI to Server Core or vice versa, there are no ways to convert to a full Windows Server installation or a Server Core installation without reinstalling the operating system. In Windows Server 2012 or 2, the Server Core or GUI installation options are no longer an irreversible selection mode during setup. An administrator now has the ability to convert between a Server Core installation and a full installation as needed. If you have a server that is running Server Core, there may be a situation in which you need to use the graphical user interfaces only available in Windows Server 2012 R2 with a GUI mode. Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2 allow you to switch the server core system to a server with a GUI mode or vice versa. To convert from Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2012 R2 server core system to server with a GUI mode, run this code snippet. A restart is required. Install Windows Featured Server GUI MGMT Infra Server GUI Shell Restart. To convert from server core mode to server with GUI mode, follow these steps. When the server is initially installed in server core mode, 1. Determine the index number for a server with a GUI image. For example, server data center, not server data center core, using this CMD-let. Get Windows image path to wim /install.wim. Run this line of code. Install Windows Feature Server GUI MGMT Infra Server GUI Shell Restart. Source wim path to wim /install.wim. Index from step 1. 3. Alternatively, if you want to use Windows Update as a source instead of a WIM file, use this Windows PowerShell CMD-let. Install Windows Feature Server GUI MGMT Infra Server GUI Shell Restart. After you have completed the management tasks, you can switch the server back to server core mode whenever it is convenient. A restart is required. With this Windows PowerShell CMD-let, uninstall Windows Feature Server GUI MGMT Infra Restart. NIC Teaming. NIC Teaming, also known as load balancing and failover (LBFO), gives an administrator the ability to allow multiple network adapters on a system to be placed on a team. Independent hardware vendors IHVs have required NIC Teaming built onto Windows Server 2012. NIC Teaming was not part of the Windows Server operating system. To be able to use NIC Teaming, the computer system must have at least one Ethernet adapter. If you want to provide fault protection, an administrator must have a minimum of 2 Ethernet adapters. One advantage of Windows Server 2012 R2 is that an administrator can set up 32 network adapters in an NIC team. NIC teaming is a very common practice when setting up virtualization. It is one way that you can have load balancing with Hyper-V. NIC teaming gives an administrator the ability to allow a virtual machine to use virtual network adapters in Hyper-V. The advantage of using NIC teaming in Hyper-V is that the administrator can use it to connect to more than one Hyper-V switch. This allows Hyper-V to maintain connectivity even if the network adapter under the Hyper-V switch gets disconnected. An administrator can configure NIC teaming in either Server Manager or PowerShell. Installing Windows Server 2012 R2. In the following sections, I'm going to walk you through the different types of installs. I will show you how to do a full install of Windows 2012 server with the GUI, and then I will show you how to install server core version of the same software, installing the GUI. In exercise 1.1, I will show you how to install Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center with the GUI. The GUI represents the Windows application on the desktop and the operating system functions that you can control and navigate with a mouse. The server core version is a command line version only. You cannot use a mouse with server core unless you're going to use the mouse wheel for scrolling. Installing Windows Server 2012 R2 with the GUI. 1. Insert the Windows Server 2012 R2 installation DVD and restart the machine from the installation media. At the first screen, Windows Server 2012 R2 will ask you to configure your language, time and currency, and keyboard. Make your selections, click Next. At the next screen, click Install Now. 4. Depending on what version of Windows Server 2012 you have, MSDN, TechNet, and so on, you may be asked to enter a product key. Sorry, my nose is itchy. If the screen appears, enter your product key and click Next. If it does not appear, just go to step 5. 5. Select the operating system that you want to install. Screen then appears. Choose the Windows Server 2012 R2 data center server with a GUI selection. Click Next. 6. The license terms screen appears. After reading the Windows Server 2012 R2 license agreement, click the I accept the license terms checkbox and click Next. 7. On the which type of installation do you want screen, choose custom install. Install Windows Only Advanced. After you have logged into the Windows Server 2012 R2 data center system, you will notice some big changes. The first is a start button in the lower left screen of the screen has changed its look. Also, you get to a start button by clicking the Windows key, figure 1-2. After Windows Server 2012 R2 server is installed, you need to look at how to manage and configure the server. In the next section, you will learn how to manage a server remotely and with PowerShell and with Windows PowerShell. Once Windows Server 2012 R2 server is installed, you need to look at how to manage and configure the server. In the next section, you will learn how to manage a server remotely with Windows PowerShell using Windows deployment services. Another way that many IT departments deploy operating systems has been through the use of Windows deployment services, WDS. WDS allows an administrator to install a Windows operating system without using an installation disk. Using WDS allows you to deploy the operating system through a network installation. WDS can deploy Windows XP, Windows Server 2003, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows Server 2008, 2008 R2, Microsoft Windows 2012, and Microsoft Windows Server 2012 R2. The following are some of the advantages of using WDS for automated installation. You can remotely install Windows 7, Windows 8. The procedure simplifies management of the server image by allowing you to access Windows 7 and 8 distribution files. Sorry, give me a second here. The procedure simplifies management of the server image by allowing you to access Windows 7, 8 distribution files from a distribution server. You can quickly recover the operating system in the event of a complete failure. Here are the basic steps of the WDS process from a PXE-enabled WDS client. 1. The WDS client initiates a special boot process through the PXE network adapter and the computer's BIOS configuration for a network boot. On a PXE client, the user presses F12 to start the PXE boot process and to indicate that they want to perform a WDS installation. 2. A list of available Windows PE boot images is displayed. The user should select the appropriate Windows PE boot image from the boot menu. 3. The Windows welcome screen is displayed. The user should click the next button. 4. The WDS user is prompted to enter credentials for accessing and installing images from the WDS Server 5. A list of available operating system images is displayed. The user should select the appropriate image file to install. 6. The WDS user is prompted to enter the product key for the selected image. 7. The partition and configure the disk screen is displayed. The screen provides the ability to install a mass storage device driver if needed by pressing F6. 8. The image copy process is initiated and the selected image is copied to the WDS client computer. The following sections describe how to set up the WDS server and the WDS clients and how to install Windows Server 8 through WDS. Preparing the WDS server. With the WDS server, you can manage and distribute Windows 7, 8 operating system images to WDS client computers. The WDS server contains any files necessary for PXE booting, Windows PE boot images, and the Windows 7, 8 images to be deployed. The following steps for preparing the WDS server are discussed in the upcoming sections. 1. Make sure that the server meets the requirement for running WDS. 2. Install WDS. 3. Configure and start WDS. 4. Configure the WDS server to respond to client computers if this was not configured when WDS was installed. For WDS to work, the server on which you install WDS must meet the requirements for WDS and be able to access the required network services. WDS Server Requirements. The WDS server must meet these requirements. The computer must be a domain controller or a member of an Active Directory domain. At least one partition on the server must be formatted as NTFS. WDS must be installed on the server. The operating system must be Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, or Windows Server 2012 R2. A network adapter must be installed. Network services. The following network services must be running on the WDS server or be accessible to the WDS server from another network server. TCP/IP installed and configured. A DHCP server which is used to assign DHCP addresses to WDS clients. Ensure that your DHC scope has enough addresses to accommodate all of the WDS clients that will need IP addresses. A DNS server which is used to locate the Active Directory controller. Active Directory which is used to locate WDS servers and WDS clients, as well as authorize WDS clients and manage WDS configuration settings and client installation options. Installing the WDS server components. You can configure WDS on Windows Server 2003, 2008, 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2012 R2 computer by using the Windows Deployment Services configuration wizard or by using the WDSUTIL command line utility. Table 1.3 describes the WDSUTIL command line options. So I'll just take a quick look through this. WDSUTIL option description /initialize server initializes the configuration of the WDS server. /uninitialize server undoes any changes made during the installation of the WDS server. /add adds images and devices to the WDS server. /control RIP image converts remote installation preparations RIP prep images to WIN images / remove, removes images from the server / set, sets information in images, image groups, WD servers, and WDS devices / get, gets information from images, image groups, WDS servers, and WDS devices / new, creates new capture images or discover images / copy image, copies images from the image store / export image, exports to WIN file images contained within the image store / starts WDS services / stops WDS services / disables WDS services / enables WDS services / approve also devices, also add devices, approves also add devices / reject also add devices, rejects also add devices / delete also add devices, deletes records from the also add database / update, uses a known good resource to update a server resource. The first step in setting up WDS to deploy operating systems to the clients is to install the WDS role. You do this by using Server Manager. One of the advantages of using the Windows deployment server is that WDS can work with the Windows image.wim files. Windows image files can be created through the use of Windows sysprep utility. One component to which you need to pay attention when using the Windows deployment server is pre-boot execution environment PXE network devices. PXE boot devices are network interface cards, NICs, that can talk to a network without the need for an operating system. PXE boot NIC adapters are network adapters that have a set of pre-boot commands within the boot firmware. This is important when using WDS because PXE boot adapters connect to a WDS server and request the data needed to load the operating system remotely. Remember, most of the machines for which you are using WDS do not have an operating system on the computer. You need NIC adapters that can connect to a network without the need for an operating system for WDS to work properly. For the same reason, you must set up DHCP to accept PXE machines. Those machines need a valid TCP IP address so that they can connect to the WDS server. Preparing the WDS client. The WDS client in the computer on which Windows 7.8 will be installed. Windows DS clients rely on technology called PXE, which allows the client computer to boot remotely and connect to a WDS server. To act as a WDS client, the computer must meet all of the hardware requirements for Windows 7, Windows 8, and have a PXE capable network adapter installed, and a WDS server must be present on the network. Additionally, the user account used to install the image must be a member of the domain users group in Active Directory. After the WDS server has been installed and configured, you can install Windows 7, Windows 8 on a WDS client that uses a PXE compliant network card. To install Windows 7, Windows 8 on the WDS client, follow these steps. 1. Start the computer when prompted. Press F12 for a network service boot. The Windows PE appears. The Windows welcome screen appears. Click the next button to start the installation process. 3. Enter the username and password of an account that has permissions to access and install the image from the WDS server. 4. A list of available operating system images stored on the WDS server appears. Select the image to install and click Next. 5. Enter the product key for the selected Windows 7, 8 image. Click Next. 6. The partition and the configure of the disk screen appears. Select the desired disk partition options. Click OK to use the default option. 7. Click Next to initiate the image copying process. The Windows setup process will begin after the image is copied to the WDS Client computer. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.